Death toll from Sweden's worst mass shooting 11 MPs elected to Aligarh Muslim University Court 7 MPs, including 4 BJP legislators that have been elected as members of Aligarh Muslim University Court. Number of AC electric buses to be added this year in Thane 100. Voter turnout recorded in Milkipur Assembly by poll 65%. Russia-Ukraine exchange prisoners of war 300 prisoners of war. What is the Supreme Court directive on sacred groups? What are the implications of December 18 order? What did T.N. Godavaram versus Union of India establish about the definition of forest land? And how are sacred groves traditionally conserved by communities? On December 18, 2024, the Supreme Court directed the Forest Department of Rajasthan to map on the ground and via satellite every sacred grove in detail. They were to be identified irrespective of the size and based solely on their purpose and their cultural ecological significance to the local community. After mapping, the court directed the forest to declassify them as forest and notify them as community reserve under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Effectively, the decision would transfer the sacred groves from community protection to forest officialdom for the purposes of conservation. The move defies the Forest Rights Act, by which by virtue of being enacted late overrides the Wildlife Protection Act, and which the government has intended to do the reverse, that is, recognize traditional and customary rights over all forest land and transfer them back from forest officials to Gram Sabhas. The sacred groves of Rajasthan, also known as Urans, Malwan, Deoghat, and Bagh, number around 25,000 and cover about 6 lakh hectares of the state. In T.N. Godavaran versus Union of India, the Supreme Court ordered the forest land in Section 2 of the Forest Conservation Act 1980 will not only include forest as understood in the dictionary sense, but also any area recorded as forest in the government record irrespective of the ownership of the land. The court then directed state governments to constitute expert committees to identify areas that met this understanding of forest land. In 2004 expert committee report of Rajasthan government identified only those sacred groves that fulfill the criteria of deemed forest, that is trees covering 5 hectares of land with at least 200 trees per hectare were classified as forest, while the remainder was not. The Supreme Court Central Empowered Committee disagreed with this choice because it was inconsistent with the court's definition of forest land. The CEC also said all such areas diverted for non-forestry purposes before 1980 could be exempted. The apex court agreed with the CEC and directed Rajasthan to implement the recommendations post haste in 2018. In early 24, Rajasthan government responding to interlocutory applications seeking directions to implement this order said sacred groves were being identified and documented as forest lands. Ironically, Rajasthan forest policy omitted the detailed framework for protection of sacred groves specified in its 2010 policy. The present order came in response to the challenge to these positions in the Supreme Court. Sacred groves are community regulated and conserved patches of forest land. They are created and managed traditionally by communities in various ways deeply rooted in their identity. The groves are kept inviolate through customary laws and taboos, many of which completely prohibit the extraction of any resources in any form except custodians to access medicinal plants. The group's conservation ethos is strongly linked to piety and sanctity, enforced in terms of community's relationship with its spirits and God. India to have 1 to 10 lakhs sacred groves of this nature, the highest in the world. They are called Devara Kadu in Karnataka, Devban in Himachal Pradesh, Kavu and Sapra Kavu in Kerala, Sarna in Chota Nagpur Plateau region, Devbani in Chhattisgarh, Jahera or Thakur Amma in Odisha, Devgudi by the Muria and Madhya, and the Gond Adivasis of Maharashtra, and Chhattisgarh की law लिंगदो and Chhattisgarh की law लिंगदो की law किंतो and की law Niam in Meghalaya, Sabarkantha, Dahod, and Banaskantha in Gujarat. They are often associated with temples, monasteries, shrines, pilgrim sites, or burial grounds. These sites are thus also repositories of various herbal medicines and gathering points for local healers as much as they are biodiversity hotspot. They are also frequently sources of perennial streams that support the growth of the unique endemic flora and fauna. Local legends, myths, beliefs surround sacred groves, and communities have transmitted them orally through several generations as a matter of conserving their cultural identities. Community relationship with their groups have also helped mitigate effects of floods, landslides, and droughts on their lives while stabilizing the soil, preventing erosion. Anthropologists have also documented the impact of sacred groves on their respective communities' mental and physical well being. The Wildlife Protection Act 2002 introduced the category of protected areas called community reserve in addition to national parks and sanctuaries. Community reserves are notified over the community of private land where locals have volunteered to conserve habitats to protect flora, fauna, or traditional cultural conservation values. The community or even the individual is thus required to prevent any offences specified in the WLPA, assist authorities in arresting any offenders, and report the death of any wild animal and prevent to extinguish any fires. The offences include damaging the boundary marks, teasing or molesting wild animals, littering in the community's reserve, setting fires or allow a fire to burn, and using any chemicals and substances to endanger wildlife. Further, a land use pattern within community reserve cannot be changed without the approval of the Reserve Management Committee and state government. Land use pattern within a community reserve cannot be changed without the approval of the Reserve Management Committee and state government. The Chief Wildlife Warden, under whose jurisdiction community reserves fall, effectively has overall control of the reserve and its management plan. The Supreme Court's direction also obligates the state government to constitute a community reserve management committee to conserve, maintain, and manage the reserve and to protect wildlife and habitats. The committee have to have at least 5 members nominated by the Gram Panchayat or members of the Gram Sabha. If there is no Gram Panchayat and a representative of the Forest or Wildlife Department in whose jurisdiction the community reserve is located. If the reserve is on a private land, the committee will consist of a landowner, a representative of the Forest or Wildlife Department, and a representative of the concerned panchayat and tribal community. The elected chairperson of the committee will be designated Honorary Wildlife Warden. Code also recommended that the Union Environment Ministry identify and map nations-wide and formulate a policy for their governance and management. If sacred groves had fallen under the FRA's purview, they would have been the part of community forest reserves. According to FRA, community forest reserve is the customary common forest land within the traditional or customary boundaries of the village, including reserve forests, protected forests, and protected areas such as sanctuaries, national parks, to which the community has traditional access. Thus, the Gram Sabhas would have been statutory authority to protect, regenerate, and conserve or manage community forest resources along with wildlife, flora, and biodiversity within. The Gram Sabhas would also have been responsible for preventing activities that harm their cultural and natural heritage. To this end, the Sabha would have to constitute their own community resource management committees to develop and execute the managed plan approved by the Gram Sabha, and state governments would be duty bound to support these plans. All sacred groves in forest areas are currently subsets of community forest resources, which are in turn under the jurisdiction of Gram Sabhas and not the Forest or Wildlife Department. All sacred groves outside the forest land, if any, also come under the FRA's purview if a proposal to notify them as forest land comes into being. In some, notifying sacred groves as community reserves controlled by the forest government department could conflict with the customs of the communities, and within the communities, forest resources notified by the FRA, which complies with the customs bringing them under its governance. If sacred groves had fallen under FRA's purview, they would have been part of communities' forest reserve. According to FRA, community forest resource is a customary common forest land within the traditional customary boundaries of the village, including reserve forest, and protected areas such as sanctuaries. Thus, the Gram Sabhas would have been the statutory authority to protect, regenerate, conserve, and manage wildlife resources. To this end, Sabha would have constituted community forest resource management committees. In some, notifying sacred groves as community reserves could controlled by the forest department could conflict with the customs of the communities. Western Ghats, a living archive of culture, memory, and resilience. The Western Ghats, also known as Sahyadris, meaning benevolent mountains, stretches along the western coast of Indian peninsula. Known as the world's most biodiverse regions, Western Ghats were once celebrated for their breathtaking natural beauty. Cascading waterfalls, climate change, deforestation, and decline of traditional livelihoods, and displacement of tribal communities have left the region in peril. The novella Chronicle of an Hour and a Half was shortlisted for the JCB Prize of Literature, explores powerful themes such as effects of rumors, mob mentality, social media, and nature, and especially Relentless Lane, hinting that something ominous awaits. The interpersonal relations between humans and nature is poignantly highlighted by Kuvempu's translated by Vanmala Vishwanta as Bride of the Hills, set in Malnad region, where people are closely tied to the forest, where relying on its fertile soil, forest, and rivers for their livelihood. Nature is revered not only for its practical role in sustenance, but also for its spiritual significance. Development coupled with human greed makes the lives of tribal communities difficult, as industrial development, moneylenders, and land grabbers encroach on their ancestral territories. People are pushed deeper into poverty and displacement. Rampant quarrying, reforestation, illegal mining, and poorly planned construction projects have destabilized the fragile ecosystem, though meticulous reporting, accounts from affected individuals, interviews, and crucial examination of policies connect these activities to increased occurrences of landslides, floods, and soil erosions. When livelihood, land, culture, and identity are at stake, resistance and resilience are the only means of safeguarding them. Tobacco use is the cause of 22% of cancer use. This is the type of lymphoma, and cancer originates from the specific type of white blood cells called lymphocytes. Hodgkin lymphoma. What is the term used to define spread of cancer to another location? Metastasis. Metastasis. The type of cancer that develops from the thin layer of tissue that covers many of the internal organs. Mesothelioma. US President declared a war on cancer. Nixon. Cervical cancer. Quiz about history of right of women to vote. On this day 1918, Great Britain passed Representation of People Act that allow men over the age of 21 and women over the age of X to vote. Since 1838, the UK's sole overseas territory in the Pacific Ocean had given the right to vote. Thus, it's the territory that has continuously allowed the women to vote for the longest duration. Name the place in India that gave women the right to vote in 1920. Although not right to stand in elections, it was governed as a princely state during the reign of British Empire. Bonus: which princely state first granted both right to vote and run for office to women? During the December 15 election, government allowed women to vote for the first time in history. Women were allowed to run for office, and this country soon acquired first women politicians. Name the world's first major country to grant both women and men the right to vote at the same time and on equal terms. This was achieved through Local Administration Act 1897. The rise of UPI digital payments. A green signal for India to assert its health leadership. A budget that is mostly good, but with one wrong move. The Union budget has got many things right. Its projection of nominal GDP is at 10.1% is reasonable and acceptable. Economic surveys had indicated in real GDP growth in the terms of 6.3 to 6.8%. This provides some buffer if growth picks up more. The increase in the capital expenditure of government in 25-26 over the revised estimates of 24-25 at 1 lakh crore, but the capital expenditure in 25 at 11.2 are nearly the same as was indicated in the budget of 11.1 lakh crore. The overarching aim of the budget was to accelerate growth and push India towards a developing country status. The required rate of real growth to achieve this estimated differently include a rate of 8% in the economic survey for 24-25. In any case, the country needs a definite pickup in the growth rate. The various measures indicated in the budget are welcome. In fact, some of these could have been implemented much earlier. The concession given to the middle class in terms of income tax is welcome as a relief, but its impact on the demand depends on the marginal propensity to consume of the household, who are expected to largely benefit from these concessions and their consumption basket. Growth in government of India's gross tax revenues has trended downwards in recent years. Buoyancy of gross tax revenue has fallen for three successive years from 1.4 to 1.15 revised estimates and 1.07. The buoyancy of gross tax revenue has fallen three successive years, 1.4, 1.15, 1.07. As a result, growth in government of India's gross tax revenue has kept falling from 13.5% to 11.2% and to 10.8% in 25-26. Within the government's tax revenues, the growth of goods and services tax has also fallen from 12.7% to 10.9%. In fact, the structure of government taxation has moved away from indirect to direct taxes. The share of direct taxes in government gross tax revenue has increased from 52% in 21-22 to 59% in 25-26, which is a welcome development. Within direct taxes, however, it is personal income tax which has performed better than corporate income tax in terms of growth and buoyancy. However, even in the case of personal income tax, there has been fall in growth from 24.5% to 20% and 14.4%. This fall in growth in 25-26 is partially due to announced income tax concessions. In the case of corporate income tax, the growth in 24-25 revised estimates is quite low at 7.6%. The growth has been raised to 10.4% in 25-26. On the whole, assumptions regarding the government's tax revenue growth appear to be realistic. In the case of non-tax revenue, the main contribution has been in the form of dividends from RBI and public sector companies, which together account for about 3.25 lakh crore, an increase of 34% 5,000 crore over the revised estimation. Thus, the non-tax revenues have raised from 5.3 lakh crore to 5.8 lakh crore in 25-26 budget estimates. Tax and non-tax revenues, non-debt capital receipts, and fiscal deficit together determine the size of capital expenditure. Tax and non-tax revenues, non-debt capital receipts, and fiscal deficit together determine the size of government expenditure. As discussed, gross tax revenue growth at a lower level of 10.8% appear to be realistic, given the commitment to fiscal consolidation. The size of government expenditure as a percentage of GDP has to be reduced from 14.6% 24-25 revised estimate to 14.2% in 25-26. Growth in total expenditure at 7.6% is lower than the budgeted nominal GDP growth at 10%. So this is important. Growth in total expenditure is lower than the budgeted nominal GDP growth of 10%. In fact, this was so even in the 24-25 revised estimate when the government's total expenditure growth was 6.1%, as against nominal GDP growth of 9.7% as per the first advance estimates. However, there has been a steady improvement in the quality of government expenditure as the share of capital expenditure in the total expenditure has been improving. In fact, the government and the share has improved by 10 percentage points over the period from 2021 to 25-26 budget estimates. Given the contemporary context, the government of India has to build up large-scale artificial intelligence infrastructure in order to facilitate the adoption of emerging technologies. In this context, China has taken a clear lead. US has recently announced investment of 500 billion for AI infrastructure in the field of AI Indian technologies. India's technology companies have failed to anticipate development. India should have done what China did. Perhaps India should push these companies for research and development, offering some tax concessions. One wrong move introduced in the budget is to move away from fiscal deficit as an indicator of fiscal prudence. Contrary to what is stated in the budget document, we are moving away from a transparent to a less transparent indicator. As per the glide path given in the medium term fiscal policy strategy statement, the fiscal deficit was brought down from 4 point to below 4.5% by 25-26. However, in the 25-26 budget, the practice of giving a glide path in terms of fiscal deficit is being discontinued. It has been stated that from now on, the focus will be on reducing the debt to GDP ratio annually. In the annexure statement titled Statement of Fiscal Policy as required under the FRBM, alternative paths of debt to GDP ratio will be with nominal GDP growth assumptions from 10 and 10.5 and 11% are given. Glide paths are indicated in terms of alternative growth assumptions and alternative assumptions regarding mild, moderate, and high degrees of fiscal consolidation. This makes the whole exercise vague and non transparent. It is better for fiscal discipline to indicate specific fiscal deficit targets for each year and corresponding debt GDP ratio for those years. It should clearly be shown by what year the FRBM Act's targets are to achieve. A larger claim on the available investable resources by the government will make it difficult for private investment to pick up. A larger claim on available investable resources by the government will make it difficult for the private investment to pick up. Not worth the risk, India must address illegal immigration with empathy and urgency. Deportation of dozens believed to be illegal immigrants is neither surprising nor unprecedented. Over the past few years, US government has intensified its immigration and custom department operations to identify, detain and deport individuals with appropriate documentation. For instance, between June to October, the Department of Homeland Security reported 160,000 individuals had been deported on 495 international repatriation flights. including India. However, the manner and timing should be cause of concern to begin with. These deportations coincide with a major crackdown by IC, spurred by Donald Trump's fearing in US. He has made illegal immigration in his number one priority. India, which has the largest population of illegal immigrants in the US, estimated 7,25,000 documented undocumented individuals, will need to prepare for a significant increase in the number of returning migrants. Second, for the first time, the use of military flight signal that the US does not intend to be challenged. This move drew protest from the Colombian president Gustavo Petro, particularly after reports emerged of deported migrants being shackled. The US Embassy in Delhi has also made it clear that deportation is a part of a broader initiative to tighten immigration laws and enforcement, reinforcing the message that illegal migration is not worth the risk. Further, the timing just ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit suggests that diplomatic efforts alone may not be enough to deter the Trump administration from pursuing such measures. This has become the potential to become a bilateral flashpoint in the India-US relations, accepting its citizens provided they are verifiably Indian and have entered other countries illegally is undoubtedly the Indian government's responsibility. However, stricter controls must be enforced to prevent individuals from embarking into perilous journeys to cross the US via Mexico and Canada. The government must ensure that young people in states have high deportation rates Gujarat, Punjab, Haryana and understand that working illegally abroad is not guaranteed path to success. The rupee slide confounds monetary policy makers' task. The RBI Monetary Policy Committee will conclude its first policy review of 25 on Friday. It's significantly different circumstances from December meet. For one, the key personnel have changed. The RBI has a new governor, former Revenue Secretary Sanjay Malhotra, replacing Shakti Kanta Das soon after the Deputy Governor Michael Patra, MPC member who was in charge of monetary policy, also retired last month. With the centre yet to name his successor, navigating this review is going to be tricky for the new central bank boss, with another deputy holding additional charge of monetary policy. Second, the rupee is in a free fall of sorts. After hitting 85 to the US dollar on December 19, it slipped to 18.6 on January 13 and crossed 87 on February 3. Partly due to third factor at work, the strengthening dollar is driven by US President's overdrive to make America great again with higher tariffs on major trade partners and other disruptive economic plans such as global tax accord. One thing has not changed, the clamor for an interest rate cut from industry and government honchos. In December, this noise was heightened after a sharp growth blip in the July-September quarter when GDP grew just 5.4%. Now, with the 24-25 GDP growth downgraded to 6.4% and the no-marked uptick in the economic metrics in December ending quarter, growth worries remain entrenched. In the interim, there has been some back and forth North Block Mint Street on the factors responsible for stumbling economic activity. Finance Ministry sought to lay some of the blame for an urban demand slump on the tight monetary policy. RBI officials in the central bank's January bulletin say one way to spark the growth, rebound, and virtuous cycle of fresh private investment is to boost consumption through higher disposable income, especially for the urban middle class that has been pinning for relief from food inflation. With the budget delivering on this front with income tax cuts, the ball is back in the RBI's court. Inflation has been over 5% in the last 5 months, but may have eased closer to RBI's 4-month target in January. But a rate cut could also hurt the rupee further and spur high imported inflation. It is an enviable situation for the new RBI chief to be in. He might be tempted to take a cue from Mr. Das, who had surprised markets with the rate cut in the first review under his watch in 2019, reversing his predecessor's stance. It is clear that US President Donald Trump means business when it comes to the subject of immigration. The bromance that India's leader had tried to portray with the American president and his use of other terms of familiarity such as Trump, my dear friend, have made no difference. The choice of using an American military plane has been explicable in terms of Mr. Trump's description of undocumented immigrants as aliens or criminals invaders. It is surprising to know that thousands of illegal and undocumented Indian migrants. The government of India needs to ponder why many Indians are taking enormous risks to migrate to the US. Primarily, it is an issue about mounting unemployment. Our economy has been portrayed as experiencing sustained and fast growth, but employment generation has not been commensurate with the economic growth. The use of US military aircraft is probably aimed at demonstrating Mr. Trump's muscular image. India has allowed itself to be bracketed with countries such as Guatemala, Peru, Honduras, and Ecuador without demur. What has happened to India's much doubted national pride under the new virile dispensation? In the midst of this, imagine if millions of skilled Indian migrants pivotal to the US economy chose to remigrate to India. This brain gain would result in a transformative leap for India. Armed with global expertise in technology, healthcare, finance, these professionals could supercharge India's growth, fueling innovation, entrepreneurship, and job creation. Their return would boost sectors such as artificial intelligence, biotech, and sustainable energy. Interestingly, there are media reports that are estimated 7,25,000 illegal Indian immigrant in the US. It is also said that most are from the northern Indian states, including Gujarat. But big question is, why is there this dispensation to leave India? It is true that America has been considered a land of immigrant for years, but things have changed and there is a gradual vanishing of the vision. Issues of land, jobs, and everyday requirements have become matters of grave concern, necessitating a dampening of migration and asylum process. The world is politically and administratively divided into large and definite numbers of individual states, with each nation bound to take care of its region. Moving to other countries without legal procedures naturally attracts public opposition. At the time when large number of relatives are at the Kumbh looking for their loved ones, the move by the top leader of the land to have a holy dip there is insensitive. It is needless to say that the leader has sent out not so subtle political message of his continuing strategy to consolidate the vote base that backs his party. I write this letter as the state president of Jammu and Kashmir of All India Registered Nurses Federation. The AIRNF has been working towards the welfare of nursing professionals across India. Recently, the AIRNF has highlighted the issue of non-sanctioning of nurses and dress allowance to the nursing personnel in the UT of Jammu and Kashmir. AIRNF has been requesting the government to grant the nursing and dress allowance to nursing professionals in J&K, citing the example of UT of Ladakh, where such allowances have already been sanctioned. Chennai and safety. The incidents of women and girls being assaulted and molested in Chennai make one wonder whether the reputation of Chennai have been haven for peace and earning indubitable name of safety where women can commute without any lurking fear. The green signal for India to assert its health leadership, the union budget lays a robust foundation to assert its global leadership in healthcare and innovation with strategic announcement to bolster medical infrastructure, expand educational opportunities, and promote global collaboration. 90,000 crore healthcare allocation, 75,000 medical seats over the next 5 years, and investment in daycare center. India is poised Daycare cancer centers. India is poised to enhance both accessibility and quality of care. Country will have add 10,000 medical seats in FY26 alone, underscoring its commitment to healthcare excellence. The budget underscores India's remarkable journey of progress from the 1980s when it grappled with limited medical infrastructure to its current status as a global healthcare leader. The transformation has been nothing short of extraordinary. Recently, the writer had the privilege of presenting two key recommendations to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. First, establishing India as the global healthcare destination. Secondly, addressing the global shortfall of healthcare professionals. It has been a delight to see both these ideas in action through Heal in India and Heal by India initiatives with streamlined visa processes, enhanced hospital infrastructure, and robust PPPs. India is poised to become preferred medical destination for the international patients. Simultaneously, the country is addressing the global shortfall of healthcare professionals by training and deploying more doctors, nurses, and paramedics abroad. This will ensure that Indian expertise supports healthcare systems worldwide while creating new opportunities for our skilled professionals. Moreover, it is commendable that the growing burden of non communicable diseases such as cancer has been acknowledged in this budget. Establishment of 200 daycare cancer centers in district hospitals will bring specialized treatment closer to home, improving early diagnosis and better patient outcomes. The custom duty exemption on 36 life saving drugs, including those for cancer, rare diseases, and chronic conditions, will lower the cost of treatment, in turn, benefiting thousands of patients across the country. Also, the addition of 13 new patient assistance programs would improve access to critical medications for patients, particularly those with chronic conditions. The emphasis on artificial intelligence and digital health marks a pivotal moment for the future of India's healthcare. The new national centers of excellence will spearhead innovation in diagnostics, treatment, research, enabling India to develop cutting edge solutions that enhance patient care. The writer believes that the introduction of cutting edge technologies to deliver quality healthcare has strengthened India's position as a global healthcare player. Both private and public hospitals have played an integral role in this progress. Apollo was the first hospital to launch proton therapy for advanced cancer care in this part of the world and continues to attract patients from countries such as Australia and United Kingdom to name a few. The budget clearly recognizes government's vision and demonstration of bold leadership in recognizing healthcare as the pillar of national growth and development. For the country that once struggled to provide basic medical care, we have evolved into a nation offering world class treatment to millions. It is our collective responsibility now to build on this momentum. A lesson from Democrats' woke debacle targeting a Dravidian icon. Donald Trump's return to White House is an important lesson not just for Democrats but political actors everywhere who are attempting to contain burgeoning right of center politics and powerful demagogues. Digital payments increased more than 3.5 times in value between 2013 and 2024 from 772 lakh crore to 2700 lakh crore. They grew in volume from 222 crore to more than 20,000 crore in the same period. In the last 5 years alone, digital payments increased 1.6 times in value and 6.7 times in volume as per the RBI Payment Systems report. Narcotics network backing infiltrators in Jammu and Kashmir, says Shah. Government officials warn against using AI tools due to security risk. 60% polling recorded in crucial election in Delhi. Row over actor Rahul Solapurkar's remarks over Shivaji escape from Agra. Stryker infantry vehicle deal with the US progresses. Javelin to be re-demonstrated. Pak wants to resolve all issues with India. Sharif. West Asia crisis must not be allowed to undermine IMEC. No major complaints of names deleted from voter list in New Delhi Assembly constituency. Majority of exit polls predict BJP's return to power in Delhi. Over 70% turnout recorded in Erode East type by poll. Amid a delay in holding census, vital on birth and deaths impending since 2020, Modi did not mention Make in India in speech. He should admit it as a failure. Will resign if opposition proves that I did not follow norms, Waqf panel chief. Congress, Sikkim, BJP oppose plan to rebuild Teesta Dam. Threat of disaster persists at dam site, says Jairam Ramesh. Approval granted despite concerns related to environmental safety, structural integrity, and public consultation. Army's Fort William in Kolkata said to be known as Vijayadurg. Fort William in Kolkata, the headquarters of Eastern Army Command, has been renamed Vijayadurg. Modi takes a dip, says feeling blessed to be at the Mahakumbh. Make Tejasvi CM of Bihar Lalu Prasad appeals to people. House panel seeks SOPs for timely completion of spiritual tourism projects. Webinar on heavy menstrual bleeding to be held on February 9. AIIMS across India facing faculty shortage. Kia hit by $155 million tax evasion charge. Bombay High Court to hear Volkswagen $1.4 billion tax dispute. Philippines VP Duterte impeached by lower house face Senate trial. The lower house in Philippines impeached Vice President Sara Duterte on Wednesday. Argentina to follow US in quitting WHO, says President's office. Javier Milei's office. At least 2,900 dead in M23 capture of Eastern DRC's Goma. Aga Khan, leader of Ismaili Muslims and philanthropist, dead. He was the founder of Aga Khan Development Network, which finances development programs across Asia and India. Trump's Gaza takeover plans rejected by allies foes alike. Hamas warns Gaza takeover by US could ignite region. Trump to sign order barring transgender women athletes from competing in sports. Trump's maximum pressure policy is doomed to fail Iran. UK top diplomat in Ukraine as Zelensky discloses troops losses. Russia claims to have captured two more villages in eastern and northeast Ukraine. India is keen to of ODI rust in final pit stop before the Champions Trophy. Question for the AI age: do machines and humans learn the same way? An asteroid might hit the Earth, how worried we should be. The age of artificial intelligence promises to be the time in which scientists will learn a lot about human brain. Existing AI models are inspired mostly by the brain of animals. Human brains make decisions stunningly fast using abstractions and generalizations, whereas machines struggle to do this. The dramatic surge of artificial intelligence has also made visible machines humming underneath to make it applications possible. From their origins in being able to separate data into different groups, AI today excels at too many tasks to count. Just in 24 smartphones have started to be sold with AI models built into them, while 5 of the 7 men who won the 24 Science's Nobel Prize did so far work in AI. As it happens, the age of AI also promises to be a time in which scientists will learn a lot about human brain as well. Existing AI models are inspired mostly by the brains of animals. Since these brains have been easy to study, scientists have been looking to AI models as a proxy. Machines excel at things they are nearly impossible for most humans, including rapidly analyzing large datasets, predicting complex patterns, learning to play chess like a grandmaster within a day. Yet neuroscientists say that they struggle with tasks that human children find easy, like understanding motives. The paradox of today's AI stems from the fact that human brain has an evolutionary biological origin and AI does not. It is likely that the type of intelligence that we have evolved for taking care of helpless offspring, we need to able to read intentions of a child that is running towards a cliff that's not yet able to feed themselves and say that they are hungry. At the heart of what drives learning is uh, in humans and animals is a dual focus on both meeting immediate biological needs and adapting to a constantly shifting environment. The need to secure resources and maintain balance in the face of an ever-changing environment likely spurred the evolution of sophisticated neural mechanisms. Learning is thus not just a process of acquiring static information, but an ongoing dynamic interaction between organism and its environment. The brain, shaped by evolutionary pressures, must adapt not only to predictable stimuli but also unpredictability of environmental fluctuations. This complexity is reflected in the ability of humans and animals to sense and respond to rapid changes in the environment. Learning is thus long duration, interactive, and includes feedback loops between the organism's internal state and external challenges. According to the biologist at the Heidelberg Laureate Forum, a meeting held in September 24 in Germany, machines are not curious. Unlike AI systems, children are naturally curious, exploring the world on their own while simultaneously learning within social and cultural context. Our curiosity is driven by knowing what we don't know. According to the kid, the information children discover when they seek it is a different type than the data fed into AI systems. The single experience of a child with an apple is very different from Google Photos labeling an apple in an image. A child experience with apple is sensory. They are feeling the apple, they are seeing the apple. It's multidimensional. The data people are getting is much richer, and there are tons of correlations you can pick up in order to leverage things like learning and generalization. The human brain and the body have been trained on such data over millennia. Thus, human learning requires much less data to solve a problem with the same levels of proficiency. For example, although the AlphaZero model developed by Google subsidiary DeepMind is better at chess than any other human player, it reached this level of proficiency only after playing around 40 million games during its training. In contrast, it is estimated that humans need some tens of thousands of training games to reach the Grandmaster proficiency. Of the key advantage humans have over machines lies in the speed and efficiency of learning. We can absorb new information rapidly, build on past experiences, knowledge in a flexible, adaptive way. This ability to continuously improve on prior lessons without extensive reprogramming gives humans significant edge in dynamic environments. Humans are also remarkably good at transfer learning. We can apply knowledge and skills from one context to entirely different, unfamiliar scenarios with relative ease. Ramakrishnan said the ability to generalize is a significant challenge. Humans also excel at motor skill learning. Somehow, humans and animals are very efficient in learning how to move. But we don't know exactly why is this case. Neural networks are great at navigating tasks involving discrete choices, but they stumble with movement. One reason is because being able to move a simple motion such as reaching for a fruit on a table requires a learning agent to optimize for independent parameters varying continuously across many degrees of freedom. Where machines excel? While we are designed to operate in volatile, ever-changing environments, and our ability to explore and adapt is one of the strengths, this flexibility often comes at a cost of consistency. In contrast to the brain, neural network models are often trained to search exhaustively for solutions in complex tasks. This means they are more likely to discover new, better solutions to problems than humans can. At games like chess and Go, AI models have been known to develop moves that surprise even expert players. One could argue that strategies used by humans to learn may be more efficient but can't discover the most optimal solutions because they are not designed to search exhaustively. Neurons are often treated simplistically as a point processes that communication by electrical impulses. This reductionist approach has nonetheless allowed us to uncover fundamental principles that underlie complex cognitive behaviors. At its core is the idea that feedback loop drives learning. Researchers use to develop reinforcement learning, a training algorithm that has been remarkably successful at explaining how organisms update their knowledge. The development of artificial neural networks has also expanded our understanding how memories could be stored and accessed in the brain. Artificial intelligence neural networks with the ability can perform better the development of algorithms that handle short-term and long-term memory processes, and artificial networks has proved us with a deeper understanding of how brain may operate in these domains. More broadly, AI models' successes in the real world have prompted neuroscientists and cognitive scientists to revisit ideas of how human brain learns. Many attempts at building AI models thus use approaches. One well known was the expert systems models capable of complex reasoning as a series of it if then problems. On the other hand, contemporary neural networks operate connectionist models, namely named for the weighted connections between the nodes in the network. The question, therefore, is what type of AI, symbolic or connectionist, is better for human learning? Despite the successes, I still think they learn in a very different way from how humans learn. An asteroid might hit Earth, what worried should we be? A colossal explosion in the sky unleashing energy thousands of times greater than Hiroshima bomb, a blinding flash nearly as bright as sun, shockwaves powerful enough to flatten. Dubbed 2024 YR4, an asteroid was first spotted on December 27, 2024 by the Alsos Observatory in Chile. Based on the brightness, astronomers estimate 40 to 90-meter wide. By New Year's Eve, it had landed on the desk of Kelly Fast, acting planetary defense officer at the US Space Agency. 1.6 chance that the asteroid will strike the Earth. The 1908 Tungun Tunguska event provides most likely comparison. An asteroid or comet fragment exploded over Siberia, flattening some 80 million trees across 2000 square kilometers. Apophis, an asteroid nearly projected to have a 2.7% chance striking Earth in 2029. The most infamous asteroid impact 40 million years ago when the 9-kilometer wide rock triggered a global winter. 60% polling recorded in crucial election in Delhi. US President vows to take over and develop Gaza Strip after resettling Palestinians. US aircraft lands in Amritsar. Key issues: inflation, jobs, affordable houses, safety of women. Over 60%, 65% voter turnout. SP chief alleges rigging. Mamta strikes, highlights political stability. Lack of strikes to attract investment. Services back at Agartala mission of Bangladesh. Six states resolve against UGC's draft regulation. MPECM releases. Five more cheetahs into the wild at Kuno. So that's all for today. See you in the next one.